Aloha. I'm Dan Leaf, and I go by the name Fig. Sometimes, less now as I get older, but it's a fighter pilot nickname that served me well. And that's why this show is called Figments, the Power of Imagination, here on ThinkTech Hawaii, a wonderful nonprofit provider of opportunities for citizen journalists like me. And today I'm going to talk about being a citizen journalist in writing for the New York Times on the front page. Yeah, that's right. On the front page of the New York Times, above the fold, for a D student in English. How the heck did that happen? Actually, how it happened is not as important as talking about writing and how much value writing, as opposed to speaking, has for your thinking. But first, I got to verify that I really was on the front page of the New York Times. So here you go. This is it. A screenshot. No kidding. The front page of the New York Times. That's my article. That's the international edition because an indictment of a former president kind of pushed me off the US edition, but it's still front page New York Times. So there you go. I never thought that would happen. In everything in school was difficult, but writing in English, especially difficult. And I just never thought. But this isn't my first journey into written word. It actually is a long trip that got me to the front page of the New York Times. I had earlier written, and most of what I write is about North Korea because I care about North Korea. But earlier, won a prize, and I think I've mentioned this in previous editions of Figments, from the Oslo Forum for an essay on North Korea, an urgently practical approach to North Korea. And that topic is an obsession for me. I don't want to talk too much about that today because I'm really talking about writing and about its value and importance and how we're losing the art, I think, of putting pen to paper. And I do put pen to paper more often. I put keystrokes to digits, but that process of writing is muy importante for thinking. I believe Abraham Lincoln said once, and I searched it on the internet, which has everything, by the way, it has everything. I searched for the quote where after or at a debate, Abraham Lincoln is reported to have said when asked about a topic, what he thought, he said, "I don't know because I haven't written about it yet." I don't know what I think about something until I write about it. There is a process, an evolution, some sort of a chemical reaction in my brain that happens when I actually put pen to paper, keystrokes to digits, and then look at what I've written and ask myself, does this make sense? Is it right? Is it what I really think? So here's what was said about Lincoln in writing. Words were Lincoln's way up and out of the grinding poverty in which he had been born, into which he had been born, wrote historian and author Jeffrey Ward. If the special genius of America was that it provided an environment in which every man can make himself, or woman, I add in the current context, as Lincoln believed, pen and ink were the tools with which he did his self-carpentry. And those are beautiful words. And they're written words. And you could just say them, but just saying them is enough because you don't know that your logic is firm, that it will it will endure the critical gaze of others who see it in print. That's why TikTok is so vacuous. You put a video up there, and whether it's some fashion statement or a political statement, it's momentary and can't be critiqued by the author or the viewers in any kind of meaningful manner. So I believe in writing. I think writing is a very good thing, but I hate it. Writing is such hard work. And for people like me who struggled as students, it's even harder. I mean, it's really hard. I was, in fact, a D student in English. And hi, Mr. Shingler. Mr. Shingler was my English teacher in Shawano, Wisconsin. He's still there. And I sent a friend a PDF of my New York Times article to take it to him after advising him to make sure that Mr. Shingler was up to date on his heart medicine. I hate it. It's hard work. But until you do it, you don't really know what you think. And I have kind of simple rules now that I've been writing a lot about how to write. And they're this: think, talk, write. Think, talk, write. Think, talk, write. Think about what you want to say. Talk about what you have thought about. And then write about it and revise it, because in writing and making your ideas permanent, you're going to know better whether or not you really believe what you put out there. And when we look at journalism in the modern era, we use that term advisedly, we don't see much thoughtful writing. And that's part of my motivation. I'm blessed to be married to a great journalist from Chile, and Alejandra is the editor of everything I write and a critical thinker who helps me understand the important connections, structure, and outcomes of what I write. But think, talk, write, or you don't know what you think. Isn't that interesting? Think, talk, write, or you don't know what you think. And if you just assume you're correct, you're right, you don't go through that process of critically examining your beliefs, you're just going to be another influencer, another person who puts BS, if I may, out into the Ethernet, and you're not adding much to the discussion. And I don't want to do that. Also, I don't want to be wrong. Who likes to be wrong? It seems that many do or don't care about whether they're right or wrong. But let's go back to my writing journey. So I was a D student. And I was not just in English, but maybe especially in English, in everything. School was hard for me. I've told you that before on this show, but it was really hard for me. And I struggled until I got into the Air Force and went to pilot training and learned to fly. And I have some ability to fly. I had no ability to write. Who gives a darn? You know, you don't have to write to fly an airplane. And that was the beauty of it. You don't have to be able to explain physics to execute them in an airplane. Flying was something that worked, and everything else didn't work so much. But at some point, as an Air Force pilot, you get to a different level, and you have to be more than just a pilot. That happened for me in 1980 when I arrived here in Honolulu, where I now live, at headquarters Pacific Air Command, and went to work in the standardization and evaluation office at headquarters PACAF. And it was a pretty cool job because I still got to fly. I lived in Hawaii. But I also had to write. I was the junior guy. I was a young captain. We like to call it slick wing captain. If you ever look at an Air Force pilot's wings, if they don't have a star or a star and a wreath, they're a young guy or gal or a slick wing captain. That's what I was. So I got the jobs that others did not want. And part of that was writing the notices and directives that went out to the field. I was ill-equipped, totally ill-equipped to do that. I couldn't convey anything in written communication. Thank God I had a boss named Arlo Wenstrand. Arlo Winstrand was a former fighter squadron commander, an F-4 pilot. I think he'd flown other fighters before that, Vietnam veteran, and a gentle giant, not in a physical sense of a fighter pilot. He was a tough guy. That's a tough generation. Word badass comes to mind. But he was a great boss with consummate patience in letting the young slick wing captain figure out how to write, because that was my job. Something would come down from headquarters and I'd have to turn it into guidance to the Air Force in the Pacific about how to fly your airplanes, what to do, what not to do, whatever. I wasn't ready for that. So I got my first writing assignment, homework, and back in the old days of the IBM Selectric typewriter, I remember those. Maybe most of you don't. I'd sit down and give it a shot. Then I'd send the product in to the boss after it went through somebody above me. And I'd get it back, very much annotated in red. And the red was pretty simple. Explain better. Don't use passive voice. Be direct. What do you mean? Not ad hominem, not personal, just achieve what you're trying to do with this written product. And back in those days, you couldn't take an online course in English, so I was at a loss. So what I do is ask somebody about, what does he mean by passive voice? I had no idea. I'd missed that. I'd missed all of English class. Sorry, Mr. Schingler. And then I'd reattempt, sit down at the selectric, type it out with the little metal ball spinning around and try to do something better. And then I'd send it in. And invariably, it came back out 2, 3, or 4 times. And eventually I get it through. But it wasn't easy. He had this patience and this indirect, non-threatening way, Lieutenant Colonel Arlo Winstrand, of making me learn to write that worked. So I could write. Cool. That was better. I felt better. I felt like at the end of my 1-year assignment there, I'd achieved something. And then I went back to being a fighter pilot, this time at Kadena Air Base, flying the F-15. And I didn't have to write very much. Oh, wait, I did. Somehow I got tasked to write a nomination for an award for the squadron. And we won the award. I did it with a colleague, a young lieutenant, J.R. Smith, who probably carried more of the burden than I did, but I learned to write, and I was writing with a purpose. And that purpose was to say what a great squadron the 44th Fighter Squadron was, and I did, and we're good, and we won. And then I went to the Command and General Staff College, the Army Command and General Staff College, got my master's and had to write a thesis. I had to defend a thesis, and I remember that as if it were yesterday, that moment of standing up in front of a committee and saying, okay, I really believe what I wrote. And what, not so much what I wrote, what I think. And then I stayed for 2 years on the faculty, and this is very personal because writing is a personal thing, and I'll get to that even more later. Writing is a personal thing. I was on the faculty and would be the chairman for other candidates who were seeking, or candidates who were seeking their own master's degree. And I would, be the chief interlocutor with them on their master's thesis and their ideas. And I had 2 questions that I'd learned in my own process about what they put forward. The first was, how do you know? Now, I didn't get this in formal academic education, but maybe it came to me in a dream. How do you know that what you put forth as fact is correct? Don't you wish that our commentators, our journalists, and our politicians were more disciplined about saying what they know and how they know it, instead of putting baloney out there as if it's sandwich without the bread of fact. I do. How do you know? And secondly, just as important, so what? Okay, you know this. You've stated this fact. You've cited a proper source, what's called a primary source, or you explain why as a secondary source it's important and meaningful. What does it matter to the thesis question, your argument, what you're saying? So in that process of both getting my master's degree and then inflicting pain on master's candidates, I learned a lot about it. And it was good. But it wasn't just good for my writing, as I said before, is it good for my thinking? It made me a more critical thinker. So writing matters, and we don't do it much because it's painful. You hear people say, I like to write. Oh, I like to write. No, nobody. If anybody really likes writing at the moment of writing, maybe I want to meet them because I haven't. We like to have written because it's laborious and difficult and requires all this thought. But it's good for us. Speaking of good for us, the next Figments episode will be good for you because I'm going to talk to Nicole Lim from Movers and Shakas, an organization here in Hawaii that does cultural education for folks who want to do business or be in the military or be community leaders in Hawaii. Nicole is a piece of work. I mean that in the very best of ways. I've had a chance to interact and share some thoughts with Movers and Shakas, and I look forward to that. As always, I'd like to know what you look forward to. Please come back to me with some ideas. I get about 0.0 emails at the info@phase-1.com email, but I'd like some. I did get one, more on that later. So I did a lot of writing. I became a command-sponsored research fellow, which means nothing to you, but it did to me when I was a student at another school years later, where I wrote about something I didn't want to write about. That's a good, because I was told to. That's a good process. I mean, it's a good process. It makes you, that's even harder than most writing. And I think it has, I know it's been very valuable for me. And hopefully for the world. I wrote papers and articles and essays. But so what? So what? So it got me on the front page of the New York Times, where I hope to change the world. I hope to change the world. I hope to facilitate peace in North Korea. I hope to reduce the risk of nuclear war. Why does that matter to you? If you're sitting in West Texas or North Dakota or whatever, and you've got a job and a family and you're not worried about North Korea, all fine. Why should you write? I've already told you. Come on, folks, pay attention. I've already told you because you'll think better. But let me get to the most difficult writing of all. I'm trying to write my memoirs. I told you this year and a half. I said, I'm going to finish my memoirs by the end of 2022. How did I do on that? I failed. I haven't done it. I'm about 100 and some pages into it. And it's pretty good, but I failed. I failed to finish. I may never finish. Writing a book is significantly harder than writing an op-ed of 700 or 800 words for the New York Times. It's hard. It's hard because it has to all fit together. You have to weave the story together over all those pages in all of your life. It's even harder because crap, it's my life. I'm going to put into print or digits everything I think about my life. And I know my memory's imperfect and that I'm going to be wrong about some stuff. I find that daunting. I want to do it. And I think there might even be a market for it. But it's hard. So why? You can all do it. You could write something. You could write a letter to the editor of your local newspaper. You could, whatever. You can do this. But why do it? Do it because if you don't, your ideas will be lost forever. And, I joined ancestry.com recently for no good reason. I know all about my DNA, but that's not important. I'm now published in the big leagues in the New York Times. But more importantly, my ideas are there captured. My reflections are captured for the public, but more importantly for the private, or my family. Because I look at ancestry.com and what's out there, and I'm going to go to a different slide here. But what you can do it. You can be a citizen journal, because that's what I'm trying to convey. That's the whole purpose of today's lengthy soliloquy. There is a market for your thoughts. And if you can tell a story, you should. Now, it might be to influence the approach to your public park in the city you live in, to influence an election. Or it might, like my book, which will never be published, most likely, it will be a record for my family. I don't have anything that my father or mother wrote other than a few letters, or their parents, or their parents' parents. I can get all the DNA, all the science I want, but that isn't substance. It's just science. And I think as human beings, we want a connection, and the connection is more likely to come from the written word. So please write. That's my figment. This is a bit of a different episode than most, because I'm just encouraging you to write and talking about my journey, and acknowledging that every time I write, it's painful. I feel good when it's done. And then I talk and I want to write some more. My experience with the New York Times article, which is very cool, by the way, we are framing that bad boy in a nice Koa frame. That front page, that's going up on the wall. The aftermath, I did a podcast for NK News with Jocko Zwetsloot, one of my favorite names to say, and a great interviewer. I did an interview with Christiane Amanpour on CNN Live. Very cool. You know what it makes me want to do? It makes me want to write more. So my ideas will be better, stronger, and more influential. And I can talk. I can give a speech. I'll do that. But it's the writing. It's the completeness of thought that comes with the written word that is stronger and more enduring. So what would Fig do? I'd write. I've been talking for 27 minutes, something like that. Hopefully you watched it, you'll remember it, but it's different in the written word. So that's my advice, folks. Find what you care about, take some time, and write about it. And remember that you can find the Figments, where I talk about stuff, on ThinkTech Hawaii. These two QR codes. I did Figments, The Power of Imagination is this show. For a while, I did Figments on Reality. And remember also that ThinkTech Hawaii is a nonprofit corporation that relies on your largesse and generosity to bring you citizen journalists like me who both talk and write, and in so doing, think better. And that's why it's called ThinkTech Hawaii. So thanks for attending. I'll see you in a couple of weeks with Nicole Lim of Movers and Shakas. Aloha.
Thank you so much for watching ThinkTech Hawaii. If you like what we do, please like us and click the subscribe button on YouTube and the follow button on Vimeo. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and donate to us at thinktechhawaii.com. Mahalo.